Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Friday. So today on our Fifth Ave Coffee Talk, we are going to be talking about the actual placement of foils within the section. Diane from California, and Diane, I'm not even going to attempt to say your last name because I know I'll end up messing it up anyways, asked the question last week to show some sectioning for each one of the foiling principles. If you remember right, last week we talked about your subsections, about the lines, the foiling lines. And so today is a continuation of that. So I invite you to go ahead, get yourself a cup of coffee, put your feet up for the next few minutes, and join me on Fifth Avenue Coffee Talk. So I'm sure all of you guys are looking forward to Christmas just as I am. And next week, I am going to be in New York with my colleagues. And so watch for me to come live from New York City next week. So, okay, let's jump right into this. All right, I'm going to put my coffee down. And I am going to bring over the lovely Erica today. I'm just going to adjust my camera a little bit here. Hi, Peggy. How are you? So if you remember last week, we talked about placement. We talked about diagonal forward, diagonal back, horizontal, and vertical. So Diane had asked me to go over how we can utilize these principles of these lines within a head form. So as you can see, Miss Erica, I have pre-sectioned her off because whenever we're doing a foiling technique, we want to be able to control the hair. And the best way to do that is if we go ahead and section it into different sections. And for this one, I broke it down. I did the parietal ridge. Everything above the parietal is in one section. And then I separated the side section, the right down the middle in the back, and so I have the back and then the nape as well. So we're going to start in this section right here. The first foiling principle that we're going to talk about is the vertical. Remember last week as I get my apron on, because whenever you're using lightener or color, you always want to make sure that you use best practices and always protect your clothing, because we know that we have a tendency to maybe kind of throw some color every now and then. And whenever we're working with lightener, if we happen to get color on our clothes, well, we end up with a bleach spot, right? And permanent markers, we can kind of fudge that in, but a best practice is always to wear your apron. Another best practice is to always wear your gloves. Gloves are there to protect you. They're to protect your hands. So make sure that you always utilize gloves. And I know you're saying, really? I'd never foil with gloves on. And it is definitely something that you would want to get used to. I know I used to not foil with gloves, but then when I went for my Redken certification, you have to foil with gloves. So I started practicing, and now it's kind of difficult to not foil with gloves. So it's definitely something that you just have to get used to. But if you remember last week, let me just pull my tray up here. If you remember last week, we talked about the lines within foiling, and to think of your edge of foil as your line of color. So this is going to be your horizontal placement, your diagonal forward, diagonal back, and then your vertical is going to be straight up and down. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start with our vertical placement. And I have chosen the back nape section to place my vertical placement because this is going to give the illusion of length. So I know a lot of times people want their hair to look a little bit longer. We still want to maybe maintain that lighter, softer look up on the top with a little bit deeper down underneath. So the vertical placement works really, really well with that. If at any time during this live you have any questions, please feel free to type them in below. I promise that if by chance I miss them, I will most definitely review the video after I'm done and make sure I answer any of those questions. So how many of you guys actually really do vertical placement a lot? Show me some love or some thumbs up if you do a lot of vertical placement. I know for me, it can be quite awkward, if you will, because here we are, we're trying to place a vertical foil, because vertical in relation to the room, we're basically pretty much killing our body trying to get that in there, right? Now, if you're a guest and you're watching, if you're a guest in a salon and you have a wonderful stylist, what I'm about to say, please don't take offense to this, but okay, when it comes to your stylist, we are standing behind the chair probably 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day. That's a long day. And this business is very brutal on our body. So the one thing that I want to say is your guest is in your chair for maybe a half hour, 45 minutes getting foils in. So what I want you to do is I want you to utilize the guest's body position to make it easier for you to place in your foils. So yes, it's very awkward getting a vertical placement in, but guess what? Your guest's head bends down, right? So right now, let me just put this up a little bit so you can see. Right now, I've taken that vertical placement and I've turned it into a horizontal. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take a slice of hair. Now, whenever we're doing foiling, the one thing we want to be sure of is that, first of all, our section is not any bigger than the peace sign, okay? And that you can see through it. Let me step out of the way. You can't really see with my black there. So here you can see that my section is very fine. If I were to put a newspaper behind here, I would be able to read that newspaper. So that's really important whenever we want to make sure that we get complete saturation. So I'm going to take my foil, place my comb in, and then I am just going to put my foil in there, load my brush with my lightener. I did mix my lightener so that I didn't have to do that online, just as I pre-sectioned. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start by applying my lightener, and I am going to reload my brush and just make sure that everything is good and saturated. Whenever we're doing foils, we want to make sure that everything is good and saturated, because if it's not, then we will get uneven results. So for me, I know some people like to fold it twice. I like to fold my foils 3 times. And I also like to make sure that I have in the back a little flap so that I can make sure that everything, that foil is right up to that scalp so that I don't get any type of bleeding. Now, hot tip, whenever you're doing a vertical foil, you're gonna take your foil before you start to fold in your edges, and you're just going to lift it ever so slightly and then go ahead and fold your foil. Fold up here, and there you have it. Easy. I'll do one more. in real time for you. So here we have our vertical foil. What I am doing is I'm dropping out right at that hairline. Okay, so there's my section. I am going to grab a foil, place my comb back there. Isn't this a whole lot easier to do a vertical application like this by simply turning it into a horizontal application? Make sure we're good and saturated. And then I'm going to go ahead and fold this up. Just like I said, make sure my little flap is right there. And lift and fold, come down here and fold. Now when I lift their head up, her head up, Erica's, you can see my vertical placement right there in the back. Easy peasy. So that's how I would do it for vertical. Now, when we talk about horizontal placement, if you like what you're seeing, throw up some hearts for me, okay? Feel free to share this video with anybody that you would like. Most definitely, we can always use some new ideas for foiling. So in this section here, I am going to show you the horizontal placement. Now remember, the horizontal placement is going to create that heavy veil of color because all of the color lays on top of each other. So I like to use my horizontal placement in through this midsection here because then I see this real pop of color. Okay, so I am making sure that you guys can see. So I am going to just section this off a little bit here. Take my clip, move this out of the way. Now, as you can see, this section is way too big for me to put one foil in it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to divide this in two, just kind of gently move this out of the way. And then I am going to take a slice. There again, it is very thin. You could read the newspaper through it. Hi, Marcus. How are you? Marcus is one of my colleagues that I get to see next week in New York City. And so I am very excited. Can't wait to see everybody. So I am going to place my foil in, pull my comb out, load my brush, and I am going to apply my lightener. Now again, make sure that you get nice and even saturation. If the ends hang out, these just very lightly hang out, so I'm just going to kind of twist them around. But if your ends kind of hung down a little bit further, that's when you can go in and actually put another foil in. So here is that little flap that I was talking about. This is where I take it and I push it right back up so that I make sure that I am as close to the scalp as I possibly can be and that I don't get any type of bleeding. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this section. There again, this one has a little bit too much hair. So also in our classes of the principles of foiling, we talk about our stitches. We have slicing, we have a micro stitch, we have a regular weave, and we have a slice, skip, slice. So all of those are different ways that we can create different effects within the hair. So I hope that if you would like to have a Principles of Foiling class in your salon, most definitely reach out to me via instant message, or you can talk to your sales consultant. If you're not in my area, like as in the case of Diane, who asked me to do this, most definitely, we can always do a digital class as well. So that is our horizontal placement. I would take then my next section down and just keep going on up with that horizontal placement. Now you can choose to kind of bricklay if you would like, which is what I'm doing here. I do want to share with you, after I put this one in, I am going to share with you my favorite, my go-to application for above the parietal, for that top section there that I have sectioned off. It is very quick, it has a lot of impact, and it is, like I said, my go-to technique whenever I'm doing the top. So I'm going to take this, fold this up. There is my little flap again to make sure that I can get that right up and snug against the scalp, pull that out, and fold over my sides. There we go. Show me some hearts if you like what you're seeing so far. All right, so far we have done our vertical placement back here, and vertical creates length. Horizontal creates that heavy veil of color. And so now what I want to do is I want to show you my go-to technique for this top section. So right now, everybody kind of has more of like that natural look that's going on, where it gently goes from, you know, your dark into your lighter ends. So you can, as far as when you apply the color on your foil, you can determine how it is. Do you want to do a foilage? Do you want to have the color going all the way down to the scalp? You can decide that. It all is going to be determined on what your guest wants. But this is, like I said, this is my favorite technique, my go-to technique for this top section. I like to use diagonal partings because those diagonal lines, they create softness, they create movement, the most natural fall within our highlight. So as you can see, I have parted above the parietal ridge all the way around, okay? And this section is going to be placed on a diagonal. Now I am going to start here in the front. I am going to let my guests know that yes, there's going to be some hair coming down in their face, but I promise once I get this section up, I will move it out of their way so that they can read, so that they'll be able to see, to walk around, okay? So I am going to take my comb and I'm going to create a diagonal slice right here in the front hairline. So this is my diagonal slice right there. Okay, the rest of this is going to be clipped out of the way. And I just dropped my comb, so hang on. Okay, I retrieved it. Shh. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I typically, whenever I'm working on the hairline, I like to do a weave. The reason being is when we do a weave, we create just a little bit. When we pull this back, we can still see the color coming through, but we don't really see that real hard line. Okay, so I have a weave. I am going to place my foil in. My foils are kind of sticking together. So here we go. I'm going to place my foil. And you always want to make sure that you maintain tension whenever you're placing your hair. I don't like how that went in, so I am just going to start over. Sound good? How many times have you done that in the salon? It's like you get it in and it's like, man, I'm just really not liking how that is, and so you take it back out and start over, right? So, okay, so I am going to start down here about an inch to an inch and a half away from the top of the foil. And then I'm going to come in and make sure everything is saturated. Then I'm going to turn my brush vertically and just kind of feather this lightener up. I do want to create more of like a softer regrowth area. We're going to twirl this up, grab some more product here, I'm going to twirl that up. Make sure that you have really, really good saturation. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to fold this, fold it again, and there's my little flap to make sure that I'm right up against the scalp, and then I am going to fold in the sides. Now my next section is going to be over here on this side. All right, so I'm going to turn her just a little bit. What I want to do is I want to create another diagonal parting, but I want to make sure that my diagonal parting intersects. Let me just move this. I want to make sure that my diagonal parting intersects with the current foil that I have there. So if you think of kind of like a zipper, that's kind of what I want to do with the diagonal partings. Okay, so, and typically my partings are going to be closer together right around the hairline, and as I move back, they will gradually get further and further apart. So let me just clip this out of the way, and we are going to do a nice little weave here. Okay, we got our weave. I'm going to place my foil in. So I hope everybody is having a great day. My choice of lightener is, whenever I'm doing something within the packet, my choice of lightener is going to be my Flash Lift. I love Flash Lift because it can give you up to 8 levels of lift, and it works very quickly. So Flash Lift comes out of the gate running and then continues to work very quickly. So if you're a slower foiler, you're going to want to definitely drop your volume of developer down, because your volume of developer is going to be your speed. Okay, so, and because Flash Lift works very quickly, you definitely want to drop that down. So my next foil is going to come over here on this side, and it's going to intersect with this foil. So I'm going to start back here, and I just intersected with that one. And Erica is getting a little jumpy here on, whoops, didn't even see that. Look at that, see that piece of hair that's sticking out? If I don't put that back in, it's gonna dry out and it is not going to process right. So we are just going to open this up and put it in, fold that back over. Okay, perfect, we can move on now. So now I am going to do some slices. There again, my foils, I am on a diagonal sectioning, okay, and I am intersecting with the previous foil. So do you have your favorite lightener? Like I said, Flash Lift is my go-to. However, if I have somebody that has like some sensitized hair, I really like the Blonde Dimensions. The Blonde Dimensions has some really great cationic conditioners in it. So in lieu of like all of our lighteners, as far as our powder lighteners go, Blonde Dimensions is going to be your gentlest powder lightener. So if you have somebody that has some sensitized hair, or maybe doing a lot of corrective work, Blonde Dimensions is great for corrective work. Okay, so here I am. I'm back on this side. My section is going to start back here and intersect with that previous foil. Let me just clip that out of the way. Take this, create my slice right here, and then we're going to put this in a foil. So as you can see, we are going to cover a lot of ground, but in a very short amount of time. That's why this is my go-to technique whenever I'm doing highlights, maybe even just if I wanted to do just a pop of color on the top. This sectioning works out very, very nicely. So I am just going to kind of feather this in up here. I'm going to turn her a little bit just so that I can fold her foil. Here's my flap that makes sure that I get nice and close, and then we're going to fold these. So as you continue through this section, you are always going to intersect with that previous foil. So my next diagonal parting is going to be right here. And then we would put the foil on. My next one is going to be right here and put that foil in. Hi Dawn, how are you? I'm going to do one more foil for you guys so that you can see this placement. Like I said, this is my go-to placement. I absolutely love it. And Dawn is another one of my colleagues. Hi, Patricia. She's another one of my colleagues that I get to see in New York City, and I'm super excited to be able to spend some time with her right before Christmas as well. So, and this is going to be my last foil that I'll do. Going to feather this in nicely up here, create that nice soft line, and then come down, make sure that I have complete saturation. Okay, I'm gonna fold that up. There's my little flap that I'm gonna use to make sure that I'm up there, come in, and fold. Now, after I get all of this done, this is where I am definitely going to take this and move it out of my guest's way so that she'd be able to see. And now she can actually walk around. But you can see how we're going to cover a lot of ground. We're still going to see some dimension within these sections because we have some hair left out, and they end up being about an inch. You can go closer towards the front, gradually getting wider towards the back. So I hope this helped, Diane. Most definitely experiment. Try things that maybe kind of put you out of your comfort zone. That's what Erica is for, and that's what Ellie is for, so that you can utilize different sectioning and different techniques that you've learned. So most definitely, education is always key to keep learning. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I want to thank you for joining me on Fifth Avenue Coffee Talk. And until next week, have a cup of coffee on me. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you next week from New York City. Bye.